Good morning, football fans. Big Al here on this Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024, and welcome to the Week 13 edition of the week that was. We'll be looking at all the player and team statistical numbers from all 16 games across Week 13 in the NFL, including the Thanksgiving Day triple header, with the Bears and Lions in the early game, the Giants and Cowboys in the afternoon game, and the Dolphins and Packers in the evening game. We'll also have the numbers for the Black Friday game between the Raiders and Chiefs, plus your primetime games with the 49ers and Bills on Sunday night and the Browns and Broncos on Monday night. And of the Sunday games we'll be taking a look at, we'll be looking at the Eagles at the Ravens, the Steelers at the Bengals, and the Cardinals at the Vikings, just name a few. So we'll be looking at all 16 of those games coming up. Also, my Week 14 power rankings and the updated NFL playoff races entering week number 14. But first, we're going to take a look at the current college football rankings from the Associated Press and the AFCA coaches polls, as the regular season in college football is now officially over. And we will start with the AP poll. And starting at the top, you have the Oregon Ducks still at number 1, 12-0 record, 1,550 points in all 62 first-place votes. They, of course, defeated Washington 49-21 in their season finale, and this week they'll be playing the Penn State Nittany Lions in the Big Ten championship game. The next 5 teams all moved up a spot, as the Texas Longhorns take the number 2 spot with an 11-1 record and 1,484 points. They played a defensive game against Texas A&M, winning 17-7, and they get Georgia in the SEC title game. The Penn State Nittany Lions move up a spot to number 3, 11-1 record, 1,378 points. They blasted Maryland 44-7, and now they get Oregon in the Big Ten championship. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish move up a spot to number 4, 11-1 record, 1,373 points. They won their regular season finale against USC, 49-35. Up 1 spot to number 5 are the Georgia Bulldogs. 10-2 record, 1,302 points. They defeated Georgia Tech in an 8-overtime marathon, 44-42, and they will play Texas in the SEC title game. The Tennessee Volunteers are also up 1 spot to number 6. 10-2 record, 1,200 points. They won over Vanderbilt 36-23 in their regular season finale. The Ohio State Buckeyes fell 5 spots to number 7. 10-2 record, 1,174 points. They, of course, lost to Michigan 13-10 in their season finale. Up 1 spot to number 8 are the SMU Mustangs. 11-1 record, 1,127 points. They beat up California 38-6. Now they'll play Clemson in the ACC championship. The Indiana Hoosiers are up a spot to number 9. 11-1 record and 1,559 points. They shut out their in-state rivals Purdue 66-0. The Boise State Broncos are up 1 spot to number 10. 11-1 record, 1,036 points. They defeated Oregon State in their regular season finale 34-18, and they will play UNLV in the Mountain West Championship. Moving up 2 spots to number 11, the Alabama Crimson Tide, 9-3 record, 840 points. They beat Auburn in the Iron Bowl 28-14. Also up 2 spots to number 12 are the Arizona State Sun Devils. 10-2 record, 832 points. They easily captured the Territorial Cup by blowing out Arizona 49-7. They will face Iowa State in the Big 12 championship game. The South Carolina Gamecocks are up 3 spots to number 13. 9-3 record, 789 points. They, of course, upset Clemson 17-14. The Miami Hurricanes take a big tumble, down 6 spots to number 14. 10-2 record, 756 points. They, of course, lost at Syracuse 42-38. The Ole Miss Running Rebels remain unchanged at number 15. 9-3 record, 717 points. They defeated Mississippi State 26-14. Up 1 spot to number 16 are the Iowa State Cyclones. 10-2 record, 647 points. They defeated Kansas State 29-21 and will play Arizona State in the Big 12 championship. Up 2 spots to number 17, you've got the BYU Cougars. 10-2 record, 548 points. They beat Houston 30-18. The Clemson Tigers are down 6 spots to number 18, and that ties the Hurricanes for the biggest drop in the AP poll this week. 9-3 record, 502 points. They, of course, lost to South Carolina 17-14, and they will face SMU in the ACC title game despite the loss. The UNLV Running Rebels are up 2 spots to number 19. 10-2 record, 340 points. They beat Nevada 38-14, and they will face Boise State in the Mountain West title game. Up 3 spots to number 20, you've got the Colorado Buffaloes. 9-3 record, 295 points. They shut out Oklahoma State 52-0. The Illinois Fighting Illini are up 1 spot to number 21. 9-3 record, 274 points. They beat their in-state rivals Northwestern 38-28. Up 2 spots to number 22, the Missouri Tigers. 9-3 record, 214 points. They slid past Arkansas 28-21. New to the AP poll at number 23, you have the Syracuse Orange. 9-3 record, 206 points. They upset Miami 42-38 on Saturday. The Army West Point Black Knights are up 1 spot to number 24. 10-1 record, 182 points. They beat UTSA 29-24, and now they'll face Tulane in the American Athletic Conference Championship. And new at number 25, the Memphis Tigers. 10-2 record, 121 points. They, of course, beat Tulane in New Orleans 34-24. In the others receiving votes category, you have the Texas A&M Aggies with 93 points. They're one of the 2 teams that dropped from the rankings. They were previously at number 20. The Louisville Cardinals with 45 points. Duke Blue Devils 30. Kansas State Wildcats 10. The Tulane Green Wave with 9 points. They were previously at number 18. LSU with 6 points. Louisiana 5 points. Florida 4 points. And Baylor and Michigan each with a point. So that's the latest AP poll. Now let's take a look at the latest AFCA coaches poll going into Championship Saturday. Alright, here we go. And sitting at the top, the Oregon Ducks. 12-0 record, 1,325 points and 53 first place votes. Texas moves up a spot to number 2. 11-1 and 1,272 points. Penn State is up a spot to number 3. 11-1 record, 1,192 points. Notre Dame moves up a spot to number 4, 11-1 record, 1,165 points. Then it's the Georgia Bulldogs at number 5, also up one spot. 10-2 record, 1,104 points. The Tennessee Volunteers are at number 6 after a 2-point jump. 10-2 record, 1,025 points. SMU Cougars, or rather the SMU Mustangs, are at number 7, also up 2 spots. 11-1 and 977 points. Ohio State, after the loss to Michigan, fell 6 spots to number 8. 10-2 record, 976 points. Indiana is at number 9, up 1 spot. 11-1 record, 895 points. Then you've got the Boise State Broncos at number 10, also up 1 spot. 11-1 record, 840 points. Alabama jumps 2 spots to number 11, 9-3 record, 733 points. South Carolina, staying in the SEC, up 2 spots to number 12, 9-3 record, 700 points. The Arizona State Sun Devils also up 2 spots to number 13, 10-2 record, and 665 points. Miami, following Saturday's loss at Syracuse, fell 7 spots to number 14, and that's the biggest drop in the coaches poll this week. 10-2 record, 646 points. The Ole Miss Running Rebels are at number 15, moving up 1. 9-3 record, 638 points. Also moving up 1 spot, the Iowa State Cyclones at number 16. 10-2 record, 565 points. The Clemson Tigers fell 5 spots to 17, 9-3 record, 457 points. Then it's the BYU Cougars, up 2 spots to number 18, 10-2 record, 419 points. The UNLV Running Rebels also up a couple spots to number 19, 10-2 record, 255 points. The Missouri Tigers moved up 4 spots to number 20, with a 9-3 record and 229 points. Not far behind them, also up 4 spots, are the Illinois Fighting Illini at number 21. 9-3 record, 225 points. The Colorado Buffaloes returned to the coaches poll at number 22. 9-3 record, 215 points. The Army Black Knights fell a spot to number 23. 10-1 record and 196 points. That's actually 10-2, I think. The Memphis Tigers also down 1 spot to number 24. 10-2 record, 187 points. And the Syracuse Orange are in the coaches poll at number 25. 9-3 record, 108 points. The same 2 teams that fell out of the AP rankings also fell out of the coaches poll. You got Texas A&M with 90 points in the others receiving votes category. They were previously number 19. Tulane, previously number 18, had 37 points. In between both are the Duke Blue Devils with 39 points. There's also Louisville with 18, Kansas State 15, Louisiana 11, Michigan and Georgia Tech each with 2 points. And then you've got Iowa and Miami of Ohio each with 1 point. So there's the latest college football rankings from the Associated Press and the AFCA coaches poll entering Conference Championship Saturday, which technically begins Friday. And now we're on to our NFL recap, where we'll look at all 16 games, the team and player statistical numbers from every game this week in the NFL. And before we do that, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe to the channel and ring the bell to get notified every time I go live. And once I get my Sports Alerts app up, there we go. We can jump in and get started. So week 13 started off with a Thanksgiving Day triple header. And before we jump into that, we gotta say what's up to Check MP. What's up, Check MP? How you doing? Alright, so the first game is the Detroit Lions defeating the Chicago Bears 23-20. And there was some poor clock management by the Bears, which doomed them in this game. Dropping Chicago to 4-8 on the season. They have now lost 6 in a row. And the Lions are up to 11-1. We'll begin with individual numbers for the Lions, starting with Jared Goff. 21 of 34, 221 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a 100.2 QB rating. Sonic and Knuckles both did their thing on Thursday. We'll start with Knuckles. That's David Montgomery. 21 carries, 88 yards, 3 receptions, 36 yards on 3 targets. Sonic, a.k.a. Jahmyr Gibbs, 9 carries, 87 yards, and 2 catches, 17 yards on 4 targets. Leading receiver for the Lions is Amon-Ra St. Brown, 5 for 73 on 7 targets. Tim Patrick, 2 catches, 48 yards on 3 targets. Jameson Williams, 5 catches, 28 yards on 7 targets. Pretty low stat line for Sam Laporta, only 3 catches, 6 yards on 6 targets, but he did score 2 touchdowns. Jake Bates was 3 for 4 on field goals. Long was 48, 2 for 2 on extra points. Jack Fox with 2 punts averaging 50. Long punts 61, both punts inside the 20-yard line. Brian Branch led the Lions defense with 6 tackles. Khalil Dorsey, 5 tackles and a pass defense. Kirby Joseph, 4 solo tackles and a pass defense. Jack Campbell and Kendall Vildor had 3 solo tackles each. Malcolm Rodriguez, there's some news on him. He had 5 tackles and a pass defense. He tore his ACL during the game and is now out for the rest of the season. So that's a loss for the Detroit defense. DJ Reader had 4 tackles and 2 sacks. Alim McNeil, 2 tackles, both solo. And Zadarius Smith, 3 tackles and 1.5 sacks. You also had a full sack from Al-Qadim Muhammad and a half sack from Ezekiel Turner. For the Chicago Bears, Caleb Williams, 20 of 39, 256 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a 97.8 passer rating. Most of those numbers coming in the second half. Plus 4 carries, 39 yards. DeAndre Swift, former Lion, had 39 yards as well on 11 carries. Oh, AZ is kind of cool right now. We're getting up to about 80 degrees this afternoon. DJ Moore led the Chicago receivers with 8 catches, 97 yards, and a touchdown on 16 targets. Keenan Allen, great game for him. 5 catches, 73 yards, and 2 touchdowns on 8 targets. DeAndre Swift, 2 catches, 36 yards on 3 targets. Cole Kmet, 3 catches, 26 yards on 3 targets. And Roma Dunze, 2 catches, 25 yards on 6 targets. Cairo Santos with no field goals and 2 for 2 on extra points. And Torrey Taylor had 4 punts averaging 55.8, long punt of 58, and 1 punt inside the 20-yard line. The top tackler for the Bears was Kevin Byard. He had 10 tackles plus a pass defense. TJ Edwards had 6 solo tackles. Terrell Smith, 4 solo tackles and a pass defense. Jervon Dexter Sr., 7 tackles and a sack. Tyreek Stevenson, 5 tackles, a forced fumble, and a pass defense. Tremaine Edmonds, 5 tackles. Kyler Gordon, 4 tackles and a pass defense. Jonathan Owens had 8 tackles and a pass defense. Meanwhile, Jack Sanborn and Austin Booker each logged half a sack for the Bears. Total yards, Detroit 405, Chicago 301. Passing yards favored the Bears, 223 to 211. Rush yards, however, favored the Lions, 194 to 78. First downs also favored the Lions, 25 to 17. On third down, the Bears were 7 for 15 and the Lions were 5 for 14. On fourth down, Chicago finished 0 for 2. Detroit 1 for 1. 8 penalties, 78 yards for the Bears. 5 sacks taken for 33. No lost fumbles, no interceptions, and 4 punts. 6 penalties, 79 yards for the Lions. 2 sacks taken for 10, 1 lost fumble, no interceptions, and 2 punts. Time of possession puts the Lions in ball hawk territory. Ball hawk, if you're new, is a team that possesses the football for at least 35 minutes, whether they win or lose the game. Closing line was Detroit -10 and the over-under was 48. I took the Lions to win and the Bears to cover, so I'm starting out 1-0 in both my picks. The second game on Turkey Day saw the Dallas Cowboys win back-to-back games as they beat the New York Giants 27-20. Dallas is now 5-7 with those back-to-back wins, while the New York Giants at 2-10 are officially eliminated from playoff contention. Oh, and one note from the Bears-Lions game, Chicago did fire Matt Eberflus as head coach on Friday, thanks to the terrible ending against the Lions. Now let's talk about individual numbers for the Dallas Cowboys, starting with Cooper Rush. 21 of 36, 195 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and an 82.5 QB rating. Rico Dowdle, the only running back that did anything for the Cowboys, 22 carries, 112 yards, and a touchdown. As far as the receivers, Cavante Turpin, 4 catches, 53 yards on 5 targets. Jalen Tolbert, 2 catches, 41 yards on 4 targets. CeeDee Lamb was held to 2 catches, 39 yards on 6 targets. Luke Schoonmaker in at tight end for the injured Jake Ferguson. 5 catches, 33 yards on 6 targets. Brandon Cooks, 3 catches, 16 yards, and a touchdown on 7 targets, and Rico Dowdle 3 catches, 11 yards on 3 targets. Brandon Aubrey 2 for 2 on field goals. Long was 33, 3 for 3 on extra points. Brian Anger with 5 punts, averaging 47.2. Long punt was 55 with 2 touchbacks and 2 inside the 20-yard line. Leading tackler for Dallas is Eric Kendricks. He had 10 tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble. Deron Bland, who's been out most of the year with that foot injury, he had 9 tackles and a pass defense. DeMarvion Overshown. He had 9 tackles, a pass defense, and he also had a pick 6 in this game. And that was in the first quarter. Donovan Wilson, 5 tackles and a sack. Osa Osa Adigaziwa, he had 4 tackles and a sack. Micah Parsons, 3 tackles and 1.5 sacks. Carl Lawson also recorded a QB takedown in this game. And Mozzie Smith, he had half a sack for the boys. For the slumping New York Giants, Drew Lock started this game in place of the injured Tommy DeVito. Lock finished 21 of 32 for 178 with no touchdowns and 1 interception and a 66.9 quarterback rating. He led the team in rushing with 4 carries, 57 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Tyrone Tracy, 9 carries, 32 yards, and a touchdown. Devin Singletary, 7 carries, 23 yards. Malik Neighbors leads the team in receiving once again, 8 catches, 69 yards on 13 targets. Theo Johnson, 5 catches, 54 yards on 5 targets. The aforementioned Tyrone Tracy Jr., 2 catches, 33 yards on 3 targets. Graham Gano, 2 for 2 on field goals. Long was 47, 2 for 2 on extra points. And Jamie Gillen, 5 punts averaging 45.6, long punt of 54, and 2 inside the 20-yard line. Leading the defense for the Giants, you've got Tyler Nubin with 12 tackles. Bobby Okereke, 9 tackles and a pass defense. Adoree Jackson, 7 tackles and a pass defense. Cordell Flott had 5 tackles and 2 passes defensed. Brian Burns, 3 solo tackles and a pass defense. Meanwhile, Rakeem Nunez Roches and Micah McFadden each had 4 tackles and a pass defense for Big Blue. Total yards, 317 for the Cowboys and 247 for the Giants. Passing yards were 195 to 131 in favor of the Cowboys, and rush yards were 122 to 116 also in favor of the Cowboys. Dallas had 21 first downs versus New York's 17. The Cowboys were 7 of 15 on 3rd down, while the Giants were 3 for 12. And on 4th down, the Giants 1 for 1 and the Cowboys 0 for 1. A lot of penalties for the New York Giants in this game. They had 13 for 98 yards. They took 6 sacks for 47 yards. Ouch. 1 lost fumble, 1 interception, and 5 punts. 6 penalties and 48 yards for the Cowboys. No sacks taken, no interceptions, no lost fumbles, and 5 punts. Time of possession favored Dallas, 31 minutes, 36 seconds versus 28 minutes and 24 seconds for the Giants. Closing line is Dallas -4, over-under is 39. Alright, they went over that total with 47. Meanwhile, the Bears and Lions went under the 48-point total, finished with 43 points. I picked Dallas to win and New York to cover. I got the straight-up pick, but lost the ATS in this one. The final game on Thanksgiving saw the Green Bay Packers beat the Miami Dolphins 30-17. Green Bay, who will play the Lions on Thursday night, improves to 9-3, while the Dolphins see their 3-game losing streak, or rather their 3-game winning streak snap. They drop to 5-7. Start with individual numbers for the Packers. Jordan Love was pretty efficient, 21 of 28, 274 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a 129.2 QB rating. Josh Jacobs had 19 carries but was held to just 43 yards. He did score a touchdown, however. On top of that, he added 4 catches, 74 yards on 4 targets. So this was a 117-yard night for Josh Jacobs. Chris Brooks, 3 carries, 28 yards. Leading receiver for Green Bay is Tyler Kraft, 6 catches, 78 yards on 7 targets. Christian Watson, 2 catches for 67 on 4 targets. Dontavian Wicks, 4 catches, 30 yards on 5 targets. And Jaden Reed, 3 catches, 24 yards and 2 touchdowns on 6 targets. Brandon McManus, 3 for 3 on field goals. Long was 46, 3 for 3 on extra points. Daniel Whelan, 4 punts averaging 43, long punt of 50 with 1 touchback and 3 inside the 20-yard line. Alright. Isaiah McDuffie had 10 tackles, a forced fumble, and a pass defense. Quay Walker also had 10 tackles plus a sack. Xavier McKinney, 9 tackles. Keyshawn Nixon, 6 solo tackles and a pass defense. You had sacks from Kinsley Agnagbear, I'll get his name. Also Lucas Van Ness, Brenton Cox Jr., and Kenny Clark. For the Miami Dolphins, even though the temperature was below 50 degrees, Tua did play pretty well. 37 of 46, 365 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a 114.2 QB rating, plus 2 carries, 6 yards. The run game pretty non-existent for Miami in this one. Raheem Mostert had 5 carries, 19 yards. Devin Achane had 7 carries, 14 yards. How about Jonnu Smith? He led the Dolphins receivers with 10 catches, 113 yards on 11 targets. Tyreek Hill, 6 catches, 83 yards, and a touchdown on 9 targets. Devin Achane, 8 catches, 56 yards, and a touchdown on 9 targets. Jalen Waddle had 4 catches, 53 yards on 4 targets. Alec Ingold and Raheem Mostert each had 2 catches for 15 yards. Ingold was targeted twice, Mostert 3 times. Jason Sanders 1 for 1 on field goals, only attempt from 33, no extra points. Jake Bailey, 3 punts averaging 48.7, long punt was 53. Tyrell Dodson led the Miami defense with 10 tackles. Jordan Brooks had 9 tackles, so he was right up there. Javon Holland, 6 tackles. Quentin Bell, 4 solo tackles. Storm Duck, one of the coolest names ever. He had 4 total tackles. Then you've got 9 tackles from Jordan Poyer. And we'll finish it out there. Total yards, 388 for the Packers, 375 for the Dolphins, so there was a lot of offense in this game. Passing yards favored Miami, 336 to 274. Rush yards favored Green Bay, 114-39. First downs favored the Dolphins, 21 to 19. Third downs were 4 for 14 for the Dolphins, 5 for 11 for the Packers. Miami also 3 for 5 on third down. 10 penalties, 75 yards for the Dolphins, 5 sacks taken for 29. 1 lost fumble, no interceptions, and 3 punts. 7 penalties, 44 yards for the Packers, no sacks taken, no interceptions or fumbles lost, and 4 punts. Miami does win the time of possession battle, 33 minutes and 4 seconds versus Green Bay's 26 minutes and 56 seconds. Closing line was Green Bay minus 3.5, and the over-under was 47.5. They just missed the total by that half points. I had the Packers to win and the Packers to cover. That made me 3-0 on Thanksgiving and 2-1 ATS. And now to the second ever Black Friday game. The Kansas City Chiefs held off the Las Vegas Raiders 19-17, and there was a blunder for Las Vegas. They fumbled the snap late in the game, which cost them a chance at a game-winning field goal. So Kansas City is 11-1. They are the first team to clinch a playoff spot. The Las Vegas Raiders joined the New York Giants at 2-10, and they are also booted from playoff considerations. We'll begin with individual numbers for the Chiefs, beginning with Patrick Mahomes. 26 of 46, 306 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and an 84.2 QB rating, and 2 rushes for 4 yards. Isaiah Pacheco, 7 carries, 44 yards. Kareem Hunt, 7 carries, 15 yards. As far as the receivers, you've got DeAndre Hopkins, 4 catches, 90 yards on 9 targets. Travis Kelce, 7 catches, 68 yards on 13 targets. Noah Gray, 4 catches, 58 yards on 6 targets. Xavier Worthy, 5 catches, 54 yards on 7 targets. And then Justin Watson did catch a touchdown for Kansas City. No Harrison Butker again, so they have Matthew Wright doing the place kicking duties for the Chiefs. 4 for 5 on field goals, long was 42, and 1 for 1 on extra points. Matt Ariza, 5 punts averaging 43.4, long punt of 54, 2 inside the 20-yard line. Nick Bolton paced the KC defense with 11 tackles. Shamari Connor, 7 tackles and a forced fumble. Brian Cook had 6 tackles. Justin Reed also had 6 tackles. You had 4 solo tackles apiece from Trent McDuffie and Leo Chanel. Chris Jones, 6 tackles and 2 sacks. Drew Tranquil, 5 tackles and 2 passes defensed. And Joshua Williams finishes with 4 tackles and a pass defense for the Chiefs. Over to the Raiders. Aiden O'Connell, 23 of 35, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a 116.4 QB rating. Many will say that he outplayed Patrick Mahomes in this game. Turning to the rushers, you have Sincere McCormick, 12 carries, 64 yards. And Amir Abdullah, 10 carries, 39 yards. As far as receiving, Brock Bowers, one of the front runners for Offensive Rookie of the Year, 10 catches, 140 yards, and a touchdown on 14 targets. Jacoby Myers added 6 catches, 97 yards on 11 targets. Trey Tucker had 1 catch for 58 yards on his only target, and that went for a touchdown. Daniel Carlson, terrible kicking, 1 for 4 on field goals. His only make was from 27, and 2 for 2 on extra points. A.J. Cole, 3 punts averaging 46.7, long punt of 55 with 1 inside the 20-yard line. Robert Spillane led the Vegas defense with 9 tackles. DeCamarion Richardson had 5 solo tackles. Isaiah Polomau had 5 tackles. Max Crosby, or Mad Max as we like to call him, 4 tackles and a sack. Jack Jones with 3 solo tackles. Adam Butler had 6 tackles and half a sack. Zach Carter, he had 2 solo tackles and a sack. And Clavon Chahassan, 3 tackles and 1.5 sacks for the Raiders. Total yards 434 for Vegas, 329 for Kansas City. Passing and rushing both favored the Raiders. 318 passing yards to 266 and 116 rush yards to 63. Vegas also had more first downs than the Chiefs, 20-18. However, Vegas just 3 of 12 on third down, while Kansas City was 7 of 16. The Raiders also 0 for 1 on fourth down. 9 penalties, 101 yards for Vegas, 3 sacks taken for 22, 1 lost fumble, no interceptions, and 3 punts. 7 penalties, 40 yards for the Chiefs, 5 sacks taken for 40, no lost fumbles, no interceptions, and 5 punts. Time of possession favored the Raiders, 31 minutes, 12 seconds versus 28 minutes and 48 seconds for the Chiefs. Closing line was Kansas City minus 13.5 and the over-under is 42. I did pick the Chiefs to win and cover, but of course Vegas always plays the Chiefs tough, especially at Arrowhead as the case was here. So I finished Thanksgiving and Black Friday a perfect 4-0, but 2-2 in my ATS picks. Moving to Sunday's games, starting off with the Minnesota Vikings, who somehow, someway defeated the Arizona Cardinals 23-22. At 10-2, the Minnesota Vikings are on the doorstep of making the playoffs for the second time in 3 years, while the Arizona Cardinals drop back-to-back games to fall to 6-6. We'll start with individual numbers for the Vikings. Sam Darnold was 21 of 31 for 235 yards with 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a 111.6 QB rating. Darnold also added 4 rushes for 22 yards. In fact, 22 is the key number in terms of rushing. Cam Akers had 22 yards on 4 carries. Aaron Jones had 22 yards on 5 carries. Justin Jefferson nearly put up a triple-digit receiving day, 7 catches, 99 yards on 9 targets. Jordan Addison, 4 catches, 54 yards on 6 targets. TJ Hawkinson, 3 catches, 38 yards on 6 targets. Johnny Munt, 2 catches, 22 yards and a touchdown on 2 targets. Aaron Jones had 3 catches, 6 yards and a touchdown on 4 targets. Parker Romo, 3 for 4 on field goals. Long was 55, 2 of 2 on extra points. Ryan Wright had 2 punts averaging 55, long punt of 59, 1 inside the 20-yard line. Leading tacklers for the Vikings for Blake Cashman, he had 11 total tackles. Cameron Bynum and Josh Metellus each had 10 total tackles. Then you have Harrison Smith with 7 tackles. Shaq Griffin, 5 tackles, all solo, with a pass defense and an interception. Byron Murphy, 5 tackles, 3 passes defense, and an interception as well. Jonathan Grenard, 4 tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble. You also added a pass defense each by Harrison Phillips and Stephon Gilmore. For the Cardinals, Kyler Murray, 31 of 45, 260 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions, and a 72.5 QB rating. Plus 7 carries, 48 yards. The ground attack was led by James Conner. 17 carries, 68 yards. That's an even 4 yards per run. Nearly a 100-yard game for Trey McBride. 12 catches, 96 yards on 12 targets. Marvin Harrison Jr., also known as MHJ, 5 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown on 12 targets. Michael Wilson, 5 catches, 55 yards on 7 targets. And Elijah Higgins had 2 catches, 23 yards on 2 targets. James Conner added another 13 yards on 3 receptions and 4 targets. Chad Ryland, 5 of 6 on field goals. Long field goal was 40, and 1 for 1 on extra points. Blake Gillikin, 1 punt only for 42 yards, and that punt ended inside the 20-yard line. Budda Baker was the leading tackler for the Cardinals with 7. Mack Wilson Sr. had 6 tackles, or rather 7 tackles, 2 sacks, and a pass defense. Kazir White also added a sack with his 6 tackles. 4 tackles for Jalen Thompson. Baron Browning had 3 solo tackles. Sean Murphy Bunting, 4 tackles and 2 forced fumbles. And LJ Collier, 2 tackles and 2 sacks. Total yards, Arizona 4. Cardinals were 5 for 13 on 3rd downs. The Vikings ended up winning this game despite going 1 for 8 on 3rd down. 4th downs, 1 for 1 for Minnesota, 0 for 1 for Arizona. 10 penalties, 96 yards for the Cardinals, 1 sack taken for 8. No lost fumbles, 2 interceptions, 1 punt. 3 penalties, 5th, so not a lot of punting going on in this game. Arizona is in ball hawk territory at 35 minutes, 49 seconds, while the Vikings had the ball for just 24 minutes and 11 seconds. Closing line was Minnesota minus 3.5, and the over-under was 45.5. I took the Vikings to win and cover, but since Arizona lost by just a point, they backdoored this one. And I go to a perfect 5-0 straight up, but I'm under 500 again in my spread picks at 2-3. Moving to the AFC South, where the division-leading Houston Texans had to hang on to defeat the Jacksonville Jaguars 23-20. Houston wins for just the 3rd time in 7 games. For the 2nd time in 7 games since that 5-1 start. They are now 7-5. They are now 8-5. Jacksonville drops to 2-10, and they are on the verge of postseason elimination. Here we go. I don't know why that was up there. We'll begin with individual numbers for the Texans. C.J. Stroud, 22 of 34, 242 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, QB rating of 95.5, and 5 carries, 7 yards. Joe Mixon, of course, carried the load for this Houston ground attack, 20 carries, 101, and a touchdown. As far as the receivers, Nico Collins, 8 catches, 119 on 11 targets. Dalton Schultz, 5 catches, 61 yards, and a TD on 7 targets. And Joe Mixon added 4 more catches for 18 on 6 targets. Kaimi Fairbairn, 3 for 3 on field goals, long field goal of 53, and 2 for 2 on extra points. Tommy Townsend, 4 punts, averaging 50.5, long punt of 63, 1 touchback and 2 inside the 20. Kamari Lassiter had 8 tackles, but the top tackler for the Texans was Neville Hewitt with 9. Eric Murray adds 8 tackles in a pass defense. Henry Tutu had 8 tackles. Jimmy Ward 6 tackles. Aziz Al-Shahir, he's been in the news lately. He had 5 tackles in this game. But he was handed a 3-game suspension after a violent hit on Jaguars quarterback Trevor Lawrence that caused them to leave with a concussion. So that's not good for him. Kind of a quiet day for Derek Stingley. 2 tackles, 3 passes defensed, and an interception. And for the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence started the game. He was 4 of 10 for 41 yards with no touchdowns and an interception, and a terrible 12.9 QB rating plus 1 rush for 6 yards. And as of right now, according to Jags coach Doug Peterson, Lawrence is still in concussion protocol. So Mac Jones had to come in and finish the game. He was 20 of 32 for 235 yards with 2 touchdowns and no interceptions, and a 105.6 QB rating. Leading rushers were Travis Etienne, 13 carries, 46 yards, and Tank Bixby, 7 carries, 28 yards. As far as your receivers for Jacksonville, they are led by Parker Washington, 6 catches, 103, and a touchdown on 12 targets. Brian Thomas, 4 catches, 76 yards, and a touchdown on 10 targets. And Evan Ingram, 7 catches for 41 yards on 9 targets. Cam Little, 2 for 3 on field goals, long was 33 and no extra points. Logan Cook, 4 punts averaging 47.8, long punt of 64, 2 punts inside the 20-yard line. Darnell Savage had 7 solo tackles, pacing the Jaguar defense. Antonio Jackson added 5 solo tackles. Then you've got Devin Lloyd with 6 tackles and a pass defensed. Devon Hamilton, 5 tackles. Josh Hines Allen, 4 tackles and a sack. Foye Olokun, he had 4 tackles and 2 passes defensed. Monteric Brown added a pass defensed. And Trayvon Walker added a sack for Jacksonville. The Jaguars actually outgained the Texans in this game, 373 to 326. Passing yards favored Jacksonville, 276 to 218, while rush yards favored Houston slightly, 108 to 97. The Texans had 1 more first down than the Jaguars, 20 to 19. Both teams kind of struggled on third down, 5 of 13 for the Texans, 5 of 15 for the Jaguars. Houston 1 for 1 on fourth down, Jacksonville 2 for 2. And not a lot of penalties in this game, only 3 for 15 yards for the Texans, 2 sacks taken for 24 yards, no lost fumbles, no interceptions, and 4 punts. Meanwhile, only 4 penalties for 30 yards for the Jaguars, with no sacks taken, no lost fumbles, 1 interception, and also 4 punts. Time of possession favored the Texans at 32 minutes 17 seconds, Jaguars 27 minutes and 43 seconds. Closing line was Houston -3, over under was 45. I took Houston to win and to cover. I had the game at -4, so I will take the ATS loss here, so that makes me 2-4. But I'm still perfect in my straight up picks at 6-0. Alright, this was a pretty fun game. The Indianapolis Colts defeat the New England Patriots by the slightest of margins, 25-24. Indy keeps their playoff hopes alive as they move to 6-7, while the New England Patriots may have dropped out of the race at 3-10. We'll start with individual numbers for the Colts first. Anthony Richardson, just 12 of 24 for 109 with 2 passing touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Very poor QB rating of 55.7. He was also instrumental in the rushing game. He had 9 carries, 48 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Jonathan Taylor was the workhorse. He had 25 carries for 96. Not much to speak about with the receivers. Michael Pittman Jr., 5 catches, 42 yards on 7 targets. 1 catch for Drew Ogletree for 22 yards on 2 targets. Both Alec Pierce and Jonathan Taylor each caught a receiving touchdown for the Colts. Matt Gay just 1 for 1 on field goals, long 25, 2 for 2 on extra points. And Rigoberto Sanchez, 2 punts averaging 50, long punt of 51. That's it for him. Good game for Zaire Franklin, 12 tackles, 1.5 sacks, a forced fumble, and a pass defense. You had 9 tackles and a pass defense from E.J. Speed. 9 tackles and a sack from Nick Cross. Jalen Jones, 5 solo tackles. Julian Blackman, 5 solo tackles, a pass defense, and an interception. Tyquan Lewis also added a forced fumble, while DeForest Buckner had 7 tackles and a sack. For the Patriots, Drake May continuing to impress, 24 of 30 for 238, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 96.9 QB rating, plus 5 carries, 59 yards. And easily the best rushing performance by the Patriots all season. Ramondre Stevenson, 18 carries, 73 yards. Antonio Gibson, 7 carries, 62 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Leading the Patriots receivers is Hunter Henry, 7 catches, 75 yards on 9 targets. Austin Hooper, 4 catches, 42 yards, and a touchdown on 4 targets. Kayshon Boutte, 3 catches, 41 yards on 6 targets. Kendrick Bourne, 3 for 39 on 3 targets. Ramondre Stevenson added 3 catches for 21 on 3 targets. And Demario Douglas, 4 catches, 20 yards on 4 targets. Joey Slye, 3 for 5 on field goals. Long was 54. 1 for 1 on extra points. Bryce Baringer, 1 punt for 38 yards. Julius Peppers, he's been in the news lately for all the wrong reasons. He had 9 tackles in this game. Kyle Duggar, 8 tackles and a pass defense. Christian Gonzalez with 6 tackles. Christian Ellis with 4 tackles, each with a pass defense and an interception. Total yards, 422 for the Patriots, most of any game this season, and 253 for the Colts. Passing yards, 222 for the New England Patriots and 109 for the Colts. Rush yards also favoring New England at 200 to 144. First downs, 23 for the Pats and 20 for the Colts. 5 of 11 third down for the Colts, 6 of 11 for the Patriots. Indy also 3 of 3 on fourth down. 2 penalties, 15 yards for the Colts. No sacks taken, no fumbles lost, 2 interceptions, and 2 punts. 7 penalties, 88 yards for the Patriots. 4 sacks taken for 16. No lost fumbles, 1 interception, and only 1 punt. Time of possession favored the New England Patriots at 34 minutes and 12 seconds versus 25 minutes 48 seconds for the Indianapolis Colts. Closing line was Indianapolis -2.5, and the over-under was 41. This game went over. I took the Patriots to win and cover, so there's my first straight-up loss of the week versus 6 wins, and I'm now 2-5 in my ATS picks. Continuing on, we have the Los Angeles Chargers, fresh off of last Monday night's loss to the Ravens. They had very little offense in this game, but they wound up winning 17-13 over the Atlanta Falcons. So LA is now 8-4 on the season, while the Atlanta Falcons dropped to 6-6. So again, the offensive numbers pretty much not good across the board for the Chargers. We'll start with them. Justin Herbert, 16 of 23, 147 yards with no touchdowns or interceptions. He had an 86.7 QB rating, 5 carries for just 1 yard. And then the punter, J.K. Scott, completed a pass for 3 yards and a 79.2 QB rating. Gus Edwards, 6 carries, 32 yards. And Kamani Vidal, 4 carries, 20 yards. Not much to talk about with this ground attack. Ladd McConkey, probably the only offensive player for the Chargers that had a pretty good game. 9 catches, 117 on 12 targets. And Quentin Johnston, 2 catches, 12 yards on 4 targets. Everyone else had 1 or 0 catches. Cameron Dicker was 3 for 3 on field goals. Long was 51. No extra points. J.K. Scott, 3 punts, averaging 48.7. Long punt of 52. And 2 inside the 20. Top tackler for the Chargers is Troy Dye. 14 tackles and a pass defense. Derwin James would be next on the list. He had 10 tackles, a pass defense, and an interception. Deion Henley also had 10 tackles. Tony Jefferson with 8 tackles. Christian Fulton, 7 tackles and a pass defense. And Elijah Moden with, I just saw it, here it is, 6 tackles. Okay. For the Falcons, bad game for Kirk Cousins. Probably his worst as a Falcon. 24 of 39, 245 yards, no touchdowns, and 4, count them, 4 interceptions. He had a QB rating of 40. Alright. Only one name to talk about with the ground attack, and that's Bijan Robinson. 26 carries, 102 yards, and a touchdown. Top receivers for Atlanta are Ray McLeod with 4 catches, 95 yards on 6 targets. Drake London, 9 catches, 86 yards on 16 targets. Bijan Robinson, 6 for 33 on 6 targets. And Darnell Mooney, 3 catches, 20 yards on 6 targets. Younghoe Koo, 2 for 3 on field goals. Long was 41, 1 for 1 on extra points. Bradley Pinion, 2 punts, averaging 41. Long punt of 43, with 1 inside the 20-yard line. The leading tackler for the Falcons is Caden Ellis. He had 5 tackles, a sack, and a pass defense. D. Alford, 4 tackles and a pass defense. Same with Clark Phillips III. Arnold Ebiketie. He had 3 solo tackles and 2 sacks. David Onyemata with 4 tackles and a sack. Lorenzo Carter, 3 tackles and a forced fumble. You also had a sack from Kentavious Street. And we can finish that up there. Total yards, 350 for the Falcons. Only 187 for the Chargers. Passing yards, Atlanta 234, LA 131. Rush yards, Falcons 116, Chargers 56. The Falcons had 24 first downs versus just 10 for the Chargers. And both teams were bad on third down. 3 of 11 for the Chargers, 3 of 14 for the Falcons. The Chargers 0 for 1 on fourth down. The Falcons were 2 for 4. 7 penalties, 33 yards for the Chargers, 5 sacks taken for 19, 1 lost fumble, no interceptions, and 3 punts. 2 penalties, 10 yards for the Falcons, 1 sack taken for 11, with no lost fumbles, 4 interceptions, and 2 punts. The Falcons, in time of possession, are in ball hawk territory at 35 minutes, 55 seconds. And the Chargers, 24 minutes and 5 seconds. So it's not very often you see a team with just 187 yards of offense, 10 first downs, 3 of 11 on first or third down, and 24 minutes of time of possession win. But that's what happened here with the LA Chargers. Closing line was a pick'em, and the over-under was 47. I took LA to win and cover, and they do both. I'm 7-1 straight up and 3-5 in my ATS picks. If you're joining me late, you're watching the week that was, as we're running through the team and player statistical numbers from week 13 in the NFL. Earlier, we looked at the current AP and AFCA coaches poll rankings in college football. And if you're wondering about the actual college football playoff rankings, those will be released later tonight. Coming up are my Week 14 power rankings and a look at the playoff races in the NFL. So let's continue with the recap, beginning with the 8-3 Pittsburgh Steelers, well now 9-3, after they beat Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals in a shootout, 44-38. So again, the Steelers improved to 9-3. The Bengals, meanwhile, dropped to 4-8 on the season, and they're pretty much done as far as the playoffs are concerned in the AFC. They needed to win this game and pretty much every other game the rest of the season to have a chance, and I think that's been squashed down. Start with individual numbers with the Steelers, starting with my offensive player of the week, Russell Wilson. 29 of 38 for 414 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a 126.4 QB rating. Najee Harris led the ground attack for Pittsburgh, 16 carries, 75 yards, and a touchdown. Over to the receivers now. George Pickens, 3 catches, 74 yards, and a touchdown on 6 targets. Pat Freiermuth, 6 catches, 68 yards, and a touchdown on 7 targets. Jaylen Warren, 4 catches, 55 yards on 4 targets. Najee Harris, 6 catches, 54 yards on 6 targets. Calvin Austin, 2 catches, 29 yards, and a touchdown on 2 targets. Van Jefferson made just 1 catch on 3 targets, but it went for 43. And Cordell Patterson, 3 catches, 3 targets, 37 yards. Chris Boswell, 3 of 4 on field goals. Long field goal of 50, and 5 for 5 on extra points. Corliss Waitman, he had 1 punt for 38 yards, and it ended inside the 20-yard line. Deshaun Elliott is the leading tackler for Pittsburgh. He had 11 tackles. Patrick Queen had 9 tackles. Minka Fitzpatrick, 6 tackles. Cam Hayward, 5 tackles, a sack, and a pass defense. TJ Watt had a pretty good game. 3 solo tackles, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble. And Cam Sutton had 2 passes defense to go along with 4 tackles. For the hard luck Bengals, Joe Burrow, 28 of 38, 309 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a 112.7 passer rating. Alas, not enough to win this game. Chase Brown, 12 carries, 70 yards, and a touchdown. Jamar Chase, 6 catches, 86 yards, and a touchdown on 9 targets. T. Higgins, 5 for 69 and a touchdown on 10 targets. Mike Gesicki, 5 catches, 53 yards on 5 targets. And Andre Yosivas, 3 catches, 35 yards and a TD on 4 targets. Evan McPherson, 1 for 1 on field goals. 38 was his only attempt. 5 for 5 on extra points. Ryan Redcow, 2 punts, averaging 43.5. His long punt was 46, with both punts inside the 20-yard line. Alright, Jermaine Pratt and Akeem Davis Gaither had 13 tackles apiece for the Bengals. Cam Taylor-Britt had 7 tackles, a pass defense, an interception, and a touchdown. 7 tackles for Geno Stone, 6 tackles, and a sack by B.J. Hill. Joseph Osai had 3 tackles and a sack. And Drew Sample added a forced fumble for the Bengals. 520 yards of offense for the Steelers versus 375 for the Bengals. Passing yards, 410 to 282 for Pittsburgh. Rush yards, 110 to 93 for Pittsburgh. 28 first downs by the Steelers versus 25 for the Bengals. Pittsburgh, 4 of 9 on third down. Cincinnati, 4 of 8. But there were a lot of penalties in this game. 9 for 103 for Pittsburgh. 2 sacks taken for 4 yards, no lost fumbles, 1 interception, and 1 punt. 11 penalties for 101 for Cincinnati. 4 sacks taken for 27, 2 lost fumbles, 1 interception, and 2 punts. Time of possession favored the Steelers, 31 minutes and 9 seconds versus the Bengals, 28 minutes and 51 seconds. Closing line was Cincinnati -3 and the over-under was 46. I picked Cincinnati to win and cover, but unfortunately 38 points, not enough for this team to win. So I am now 7-2 straight up and 3-6 in my spread picks. Okay, next you got the Seattle Seahawks defeating the New York Jets 26-21. Moving Seattle alone, leaving Seattle alone atop the NFC West at 7-5. Meanwhile, the hits keep on coming for the New York Jets. They are now 3-9 and on the verge of being knocked out of the playoffs. We'll begin with individual numbers for the Hawks, starting with Geno Smith. 20 of 31, 206 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and a 94.3 QB rating. Ground attack was led by Kenneth Walker, 16 carries, 49 yards, and Zach Charbonnet, 4 carries, 28 yards, and a touchdown. Leading receivers are Jackson Smith and Jigba, 4 catches, 74 yards on 4 targets. DK Metcalf, 4 for 66 on 9 targets. Noah Fant, 3 for 26 on 4 targets. Tyler Lockett held to 3 catches, 16 yards on 3 targets. A.J. Barner, 2 catches, 14 yards, and a touchdown on 2 targets. And Zach Charbonnet, 2 catches, 13 yards on 3 targets. Jason Myers, 2 for 2 on field goals. Long was 54, 2 for 3 on extra points. Michael Dixon, 3 punts averaging 47, long punt of 52, 1 touchback, and 1 inside the 20. Leading tackler for the Seahawks is Ernest Jones. He had 8. Julian Love, 6 solo tackles, a forced fumble, and a pass defense. Kobe Bryant, 5 tackles. Devin Witherspoon, 4 tackles. And now you come to my defensive player of the week, and that's Leonard Williams. He had 4 tackles, 2 sacks, a pass defense, and an interception return for a touchdown that went 92 yards. So Big Leonard Williams is my defensive player of the week. And for the Jets, Aaron Rodgers, 21 of 39, 185 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a 73.1 QB rating. Breece Hall, only rusher that matters here, 12 carries, 60 yards. As far as the receiving corps, they were led by Devontae Adams, 5 catches, 66 yards, and a touchdown on 12 targets. Garrett Wilson, 5 for 41 on 10 targets. Tyler Conklin, 4 catches, 32 yards on 5 targets. Isaiah Davis, 3 catches, 28 yards, and a touchdown on 3 targets. Anders Carlson, no field goals, and 1 for 2 on extra points. Thomas Morstead, 4 punts averaging 40.5, long punt of 51, 1 touchback, and 1 inside the 20-yard line. Leading tacklers for the Jets were DJ Reed with 7 and a pass defense, and Quincy Williams with 7, a sack, and a forced fumble. Sauce Gardner had 3 tackles and 2 passes defense. Down further on the list as well, McDonald, 2 solo tackles and 2 sacks. Total yards nearly split down the middle, 259 for Seattle, 258 for New York. Passing yards favored the Seahawks, 175, 169. Rush yards favored the Jets, 89, 84. Jets had 17 first downs, Seahawks 16. Both teams bat on third down, 4 of 13 for Seattle and 5 of 13 for New York. Fourth downs, Seattle 1 for 2 and New York 1 for 3. 5 penalties, 50 yards for the Seahawks, 3 sacks taken for 31, 2 lost fumbles, no interceptions, and 3 punts. 12 penalties, 83 yards for the Jets, 2 sacks taken for 16, 1 lost fumble, 1 interception, and 4 punts. Time of possession, 31 minutes, 21 seconds for the Seahawks, 28 minutes, 39 seconds for the New York Jets. Shockingly, the closing line was New York minus 1.5, and the over-under was 41.5. I picked Seattle to win and to cover because I had it at Seattle minus 1, but they switched it to the Jets in game. So I'll go with what I wrote down and move the 8-2 straight up, 4-6 ATS. Alright, the last of the early games on Sunday, you have the Washington Commanders laying the smackdown on the Tennessee Titans by a final of 42-19. Dan Quinn's Commanders end a 3-game losing streak and move to 8-5 on the season, while the Titans drop to 3-9. We'll start with individual numbers for the Commanders. Jaden Daniels, 25 of 30 for 206, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 114.7 QB rating. Plus 9 carries, 34 yards, and a rushing touchdown. So he had 4 total touchdowns in this game. Brian Robinson, 16 carries, 103 and a touchdown. Chris Rodriguez Jr., 13 carries, 94 yards, and a rush touchdown. Scary Terry McLaurin led Washington's receivers with 8 catches, 73 yards, and 2 scores on 8 targets. De'Ami Brown, 4 catches, 35 yards on 5 targets. Zach Ertz, 3 for 35 and a touchdown on 6 targets. Noah Brown, 3 for 27 on 4 targets. Olamide Zaccheaus, 3 catches, 14 yards on 3 targets. And Luke McCaffrey, this is the younger brother of Christian McCaffrey. Luke had 2 catches, 13 yards on 2 targets. Zane Gonzalez, 0 for 2 on field goals, but 6 for 6 on extra points. Tress Way, 1 punt at 52 yards. Top tackler for Washington is Mike Sanderstill, 7 tackles and a forced fumble for the rookie. Both Quan Martin and Bobby Wagner had 5 tackles apiece. Frankie Louvu, 3 solo tackles and a sack. Daron Payne, 3 tackles and half a sack. The other half sack went to Sullen Farrell. For the Tennessee Titans, Will Levis, 18 of 37, 212 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. QB rating of 84.5. Tony Pollard, 8 carries, 35 yards. That's it for the ground attack. Nick Westbrook-Akine led the Titans receivers with 3 catches, 61 yards, and 2 touchdowns on 8 targets. Calvin Ridley, 2 for 45 on 7 targets. Tyler Boyd, 3 for 37 on 4 targets. Tony Pollard, 4 for 33 on 6 targets. And Chig Okonkwo, 3 catches, 27 yards on 6 targets. Nick Folk, 2 for 2 on field goals. Long was 44, 1 for 1 on extra points. Ryan Stonehouse with 4 punts, averaging 53.3. Long punt of 58 with 1 touchback. Top tackler this week for the Titans is Daryl Worley with 17 tackles, 9 assists, and 8 solo. Kenneth Murray, 10 tackles, half a sack, and a forced fumble. Jeffrey Simmons, 9 tackles. Roger McCreary, 8 tackles. Amani Hooker, 7 tackles. Arden Key had 2 tackles and 1.5 sacks for the Titans. Total yards, Washington 463, Tennessee 245. The 463 yards are the most allowed by the Titans defense this year. Passing yards, 210 to 186 for Tennessee. Rush yards, 267 to 35, Washington. The Commanders also had the edge in first downs, more than 2 to 1. The Commanders had 29 first downs versus just 12 for the Titans. Tennessee, 5 of 12 on third down, 0 for 1 on fourth down. Washington, 9 for 14 on third down, 1 for 1 on fourth down. Twelve penalties, 93 yards for the Titans, 2 sacks taken for 2, 2 lost fumbles, no interceptions, and 4 punts. 7 penalties, 65 yards for the Commanders, 2 sacks taken for 10, no lost fumbles, 1 interception, and only 1 punt. Washington definitely in ball hawk territory at 40 minutes, 13 seconds. Meanwhile, the Titans Lowest time of possession of any team in the NFL this week, 19 minutes and 47 seconds. Closing line was Washington -6, and the over-under was 45. I took the Commanders to win, but I took Tennessee to cover. Well, Washington easily covers 6. So I'm now 10-2 straight up. Or rather 9-2 straight up. And 4-7 in my ATS picks. Moving to the late games, and we'll start with the Los Angeles Rams visiting the Superdome and defeating the New Orleans Saints 21-14 to move to 6-6 on this season. The Saints saw their quick 2-game win streak end. They are now 4-8. We'll begin with individual numbers for the Rams, starting with Matthew Stafford. Didn't throw it as much, but he was effective when he did. 14-24, 183 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 110.2 QB rating. Kyren Williams led the ground attack with 15 carries, 104 yards, and a touchdown. And rookie Blake Corum, 8 carries, 42 yards. Alright. Puka Nacua led the LA receivers with 5 catches, 56 yards, and a touchdown on 8 targets. Demarcus Robinson had 2 catches, 49 yards, and a touchdown on 3 targets. Tutu Atwell, 2 catches, 39 yards on 2 targets, and Cooper Kupp, 3 grabs, 17 yards on 6 targets. No field goals for Josh Carty, 3 for 3 on extra points. Ethan Evans, 3 punts at 38.7. Long was 45, 2 inside the 20. Top tackler for the Rams is Christian Roseboom, 12 tackles and a pass defense. Quentin Lake, 8 tackles and a pass defense. Kobe Durant and Cameron Kitchens has 6 tackles apiece. Omar Spates, 10 tackles and a pass defense. Jarrett Verse, 5 tackles and a pass defense. And Cameron Curl, 3 tackles and a pass defense. And for the Saints, Derek Carr, just not the answer in New Orleans, don't you think? 24-37, 184 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, 85.9 QB rating. Good game for Alvin Kamara. 23 carries, 112 yards, 4 catches, 7 yards on 6 targets. Alright, Taysom Hill, 5 catches, 37 yards on 7 targets. But he suffered a season-ending knee injury in this game. So that's a big weapon loss for the Saints offense. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, also known as MVS, 2 catches, 36 yards, and a touchdown on 3 targets. And Jawan Johnson, 5 catches, 36 yards on 7 targets. Kevin Austin Jr., 3 catches, 31 yards on 3 targets. Blake Grupe, 2 for 3 on field goals. Long was 54, no extra points. Matthew Hayball, 3 punts, averaging 42.7. Long punt of 49 with 2 inside the 20-yard line. Okay, top tackler for New Orleans is Ugo Amadi. 9 tackles and a pass defense. Pete Werner, 8 tackles. Will Harris, 6 tackles. And Alontae Taylor with 5 tackles. Total yards almost even in this game as well. 327 for the Saints, 322 for the Rams. Pass yards favor New Orleans, 184-166. Rush yards favor Los Angeles, 156-143. First downs also favored the Rams, 22-19. LA 4 for 9 on third down, 1 for 2 on fourth down. New Orleans 5 of 15 on third down, 2 for 3 on fourth down. 3 penalties, 30 yards for the Rams, 2 sacks taken for 17. No lost fumbles, no interceptions, and 3 punts. 4 penalties, 38 yards for the Saints, no sacks taken, no lost fumbles, no interceptions, and they also have 3 punts. Time of possession, Saints 32 minutes, 37 seconds. Rams 27 minutes, 23 seconds. Closing line was LA -3, and the over-under is 49. I took the Rams to win and cover, so that makes me 10-2 on my straight-up picks and 5-7 in my ATS picks. All right. Next, you had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers outlast the Carolina Panthers in overtime, 26-23. At 6-6, Tampa Bay ties Atlanta atop the NFC South, but the tiebreaker head-to-head would go to the Falcons. The Panthers, meanwhile, dropped to 3-9 on the season. Start with individual numbers for the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield, 21 of 33, 235 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, and a 69.6 QB rating. Kyle Trask completed a pass for 5 yards and an 87.5 passer rating. How about this nice game for Bucky Irving? Nearly 200 yards from scrimmage in this one. On the ground, 25 carries, 152 yards, and a touchdown. And receiving, he had 3 catches, 33 yards on 3 targets. So that's 184 on 28 total touches for Bucky Irving. Rachaad White, not too shabby, 11 carries, 76 yards. But yet, he did add a single catch on a single target for 2 yards. Mike Evans led Tampa Bay's receivers, 8 catches, 118 and a touchdown on 12 targets. Sterling Shepard, 4 catches, 42 yards on 7 targets. Jalen McMillan, 2 catches, 25 yards on 3 targets. And Cade Otton, 4 catches, 20 yards on 7 targets. Chase McLaughlin, 4 for 5 on field goals. Long was 51, 2 for 2 on extra points. Trenton Gill with 5 punts, averaging 45.6, long punt of 54, with 2 inside the 20-yard line. Levante David was Tampa Bay's leading tackler. He had 8 tackles. Antoine Winfield Jr., 6 solo tackles. Yaya Diaby, 6 tackles. Anthony Nelson, 6 tackles and a forced fumble. Jamil Dean, 5 tackles. J.J. Russell, the same. He had 5 tackles as well. And Mike Edwards with 4 tackles for the Bucs. Over to the Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young, 26 of 46, 298 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, 83.4 QB rating. Plus 3 carries, 17 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Chuba Hubbard, 12 carries, 43 yards. Jonathan Brooks, 6 carries, 18 yards. Leading receivers are Adam Thielen, 8 catches, 99 yards, and a touchdown on 10 targets. Tommy Tremble, 5 catches, 77 yards on 8 targets. Xavier Legette, 4 catches, 53 yards on 8 targets. David Moore, 5 catches, 40 yards on 9 targets. And Jonathan Brooks, 3 catches, 23 yards on 3 targets. Eddie Pinheiro, 3 for 5 on field goals, long of 47, 2 for 2 on extra points. Johnny Hecker, 5 punts, averaging 38.4, long punt of 49. Leading tackler for Carolina is Josie Jewell, 10 tackles and a sack. Charles Smith Wade, 8 tackles, a pass defense, and an interception. Jordan Fuller, 8 tackles, and a pass defense. Xavier Woods, 7 tackles, a pass defense, and an interception. Ashawn Robinson, 6 tackles. J.C. Horn, 6 tackles and 2 passes defense. And you got sacks from Trevin Wallace, Amari Barno, Jadeveon Clowney, and that's all the sacks in this game. Total yards, Buccaneers 445, Panthers 367. Passing yards, 289 to 209 for Carolina. Rush yards, 236 to 78 for Tampa Bay. The Buccaneers had 27 first downs. The Panthers had 19. Tampa Bay 2 of 12 on third down, 1 of 1 on fourth down. Carolina 6 of 16 on third down. 7 penalties, 54 yards for the Bucs, 4 sacks taken for 31, no lost fumbles, 2 interceptions, and 5 punts. 7 penalties, 62 yards for the Panthers, 1 sack taken for 9, 1 lost fumble, no interceptions, and also 5 punts. The Buccaneers went into ball hawk territory at 39 minutes, 31 seconds. Panthers 27 minutes, 39 seconds. Closing line, Tampa Bay minus 6.5, and the over-under is 46. I took Tampa to win and to cover. Took the straight-up pick, lost the ATS pick. So this now makes me 10-2, or rather 11-2 in my straight-up picks, and 5-8 in my spread picks. Alright, now to our game of the week as the Philadelphia Eagles go into the Ravens' nest and beat the Baltimore Ravens 24-19 to win their 8th game in a row and improve to 10-2 on the season. The Ravens, meanwhile, will drop to 8-5. We'll start with individual numbers for the Eagles. Jalen Hurts really didn't have to do much. 11 of 19, 118 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and a 93.8 QB rating, plus 9 carries, 29 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Saquon Barkley. Those yells for MVP getting louder and louder in Philly. 23 carries, 107, and a touchdown. 2 catches, 10 yards on 4 targets. Alright. Other receivers include A.J. Brown, 5 for 66 on 6 targets. And Dallas Goedert, 3 for 35 and a touchdown on 4 targets. Jake Elliott, 1 for 1 on field goals. Long was 35, 3 for 3 on extra points. Braden Mann, 6 punts at 51.2. Long is 58, 5 inside the 20-yard line. Zach Bond is once again the Eagles' top tackler. He had 13 plus half a sack and a forced fumble. Nakobe Dean, 10 tackles. Cooper DeJean, 5 tackles and a pass defense. Tristan McCullum, 4 solo tackles and a pass defense. Isaiah Rodgers, 4 tackles. Nolan Smith, 8 tackles and a sack. Josh Sweat, 5 tackles. Reed Blankenship, Reed Blankenship, 4 tackles for leaving the game with a concussion. Not sure if he'll play Sunday against the Panthers. I think signs there point to no. Jalen Carter, 4 tackles and a sack. Jalix Hunt added half a sack plus 2 tackles. And Quinyon Mitchell, 1 tackle and a pass defense. For the Ravens, Lamar Jackson losing just his second game against the NFC in 25 career matchups. 23 of 36, 237 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, QB rating of 101.3, plus 8 carries, 79 yards. Derrick Henry, 19 carries, 82 yards. Receiving wise, Zay Flowers, 3 for 74 on 7 targets. Mark Andrews, 6 for 67 and a touchdown on 7 targets. Isaiah Likely, 5 for 38 and a touchdown on 8 targets. Derrick Henry, 3 for 29 on 3 targets. Justice Hill, 4 for 15 on 6 targets. And Tylan Wallace, 2 catches, 14 yards on 2 targets. Justin Tucker had a tough goal kicking the ball today. 2 for 4 on field goals. Long was 50, 1 for 2 on extra points. Jake Stout, 4 punts at 47.8. That's Jordan Stout, 4 punts at 47.8, and his long was 58. Leading tackler for the Ravens is actually Roquan Smith. He had 11 tackles and half a sack. Ardarius Washington had 8 tackles. Chris Board, 8 tackles. Brandon Stevens, 4 tackles and a pass defense. 4 tackles apiece for Kyle Hamilton, Travis Jones, and Trenton Simpson. Disney. Marlon Humphrey had 3 tackles and half a sack as well for the Ravens. Total yards, Baltimore 372, Philly 252. Passing yards 206 to 112 for the Ravens. Rush yards 166 to 140 for the Ravens. Baltimore had 24 first downs, Philadelphia 17. Eagles 4 of 12 on 3rd down, 1 of 1 on 4th down. And the Ravens 6 of 15 on 3rd down, 1 for 2 on 4th down. 8 penalties, 55 yards for the Eagles, 2 sacks taken for 6. No lost fumbles, no interceptions, 6 punts. 4 penalties, 20 yards for the Ravens, 3 sacks taken for 31, no lost fumbles, no interceptions, and 4 punts. Time of possession favored the Ravens at 33 minutes, 51 seconds versus the Eagles 26 minutes and 9 seconds. Closing line, Baltimore -3 over under 50. I did take the Ravens to win and to cover, and I lost both picks, but that's all good. I'm still 11-3 straight up and 5-9 ATS. On to Sunday Night Football as the Buffalo Bills officially lock up the AFC East Division title by blasting the San Francisco 49ers in the snow, 35-10. Buffalo is now 10-2 on the season, while the Niners are at 5-7. The struggles continue, and the injuries also keep mounting up for Kyle Shanahan's team. Start with individual numbers for the Bills. Josh Allen, 13-17, 148 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 141.3 QB rating. Mitch Trubisky completed a pass for 4 yards and an 83.3 QB rating. Great showing by the ground game for the Buffalo Bills, led by James Cook, 14 carries, 107 and a touchdown. Ray Davis, 11 carries, 63 yards, and a touchdown. Josh Allen also added a rushing touchdown. All right, Ty Johnson, 5 for 28. And Josh Allen, with that rushing touchdown, ran 3 times for 18. All right, not a lot with the receiving core, however. Dawson Knox, 2 for 56 on 2 targets. Khalil Shakir, 4 for 30 on 7 targets. Amari Cooper, pretty quiet game, 3 catches, 12 yards on 3 targets. And how about this? Josh Allen had a touchdown reception in this game, so did Mac Hollins, and they both had 7 receiving yards. How crazy. Tyler Bass, 0 for 1 on field goals, 5 for 5 on extra points. And Sam Martin, 3 punts averaging 46.7, long punt of 54, 1 inside the 20-yard line. Terrell Bernard led the Bills with 9 tackles. You had 6 tackles from Teron Johnson and Taylor Rapp. Rapp also added a forced fumble. DeMar Hamlin, 5 tackles. Greg Rousseau, 4 tackles and a sack. Rasul Douglas, 5 tackles. Matt Milano, playing in his first NFL game in more than a year. He had 5 tackles in his 2024 debut. And Cole Bishop had 2 tackles and a forced fumble. For the struggling 49ers, Brock Purdy, 11 of 18, 94 yards, no touchdowns or interceptions, and a 74.8 passer rating. Alright. Jordan Mason. Both running backs did get hurt in this game. We'll start with Jordan Mason. 13 carries, 78 yards. He has an ankle injury, and it's been placed on injured reserve. And he may come back towards the end of the season. Meanwhile, Christian McCaffrey, who sat out all year for the most part with an Achilles, he had 7 carries, 53 yards. But he is also going on injured reserve with a knee injury. So their top 2 running backs are now on IR, which is not good. As far as the receivers, Jawan Jennings led the way with 3 catches, 56 yards on 5 targets. Deebo Samuel, 4 for 20 yards on 5 targets. And Christian McCaffrey, 2 for 14 on 3 targets. Jake Moody, 1 for 3 on field goals, only make from 33. And 1 for 1 on extra points. Pat O'Donnell, 3 punts averaging 41.3, long punt of 46. 1 inside the 20-yard line. Leading tackler for San Francisco is Jair Brown with 8 tackles. Renardo Green had 6 tackles and a pass defense. D. Winters finishes with 5 tackles. Devondre Campbell also had 5 tackles. Total yards, Bills 372 and the Niners with 239. Passing yards at 152 to 86, and rush yards at 220 to 153, both favor Buffalo. Same with first downs. The Bills had 20 versus 15 for the 49ers. San Francisco 3 of 10 on third down, Buffalo 6 of 12, both for 1 on fourth down. 2 penalties, 10 yards for the Niners, 2 sacks taken for 8, 3 lost fumbles, no interceptions, and 3 punts. 5 penalties, 35 yards for the Bills, no sacks taken, No lost fumbles, no interceptions, and 3 punts. Time of possession, 33 minutes, 27 seconds for the Buffalo Bills. 26 minutes, 33 seconds for the San Francisco 49ers. Closing line was Buffalo minus 6.5. And your over-under was 45.5. And they just missed the total by that half points. I picked Buffalo to win and cover, and this was my lock of the week. So overall, I am 12-3 straight up and 6-9 ATS. And this is now my 9th straight lock win, as I improved to 11-2 with my lock picks this season. And wrapping up the recap, you have Monday Night Football as the Denver Broncos and the Cleveland Browns put on a show. Denver ends up winning this game 41-32. So they will remain in that 7th and final wild card spot at 8-5. The Browns, meanwhile, fall to 3-9, and their chances of making the playoffs are, at this point, non-existent. We'll start with individual numbers for the Broncos. Beginning with Bo Nix. 18-35, 294 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, and a 65.7 QB rating, plus 3 carries, 4 yards. Jaleel McLaughlin, 14 carries and 84 yards to lead Denver's run attack. The Broncos had 2 100-yard receivers, including Marvin Mims Jr., 3 catches for 105 and a touchdown, which went for 93 of those yards, on 4 targets. And Courtland Sutton, 6 catches, 102 on 9 targets. Will Lutz, 2 for 2 on field goals, long of 36, 5 for 5 on extra points. Riley Dixon, 5 punts, averaging 51.2, long punt of 61, 3 punts inside the 20-yard line. Your leading tacklers for the Broncos were Cody Barton and Levi Wallace. They each had 8 tackles. They each had a pass defense, and Barton added an interception. You had 6 tackles for PJ Locke. Jaquan McMillan, 5 tackles, 4 passes defense, and an interception return for a touchdown. That's 1 of 2 on the night for the Broncos. The other was Nick Bonito. He had just 1 tackle plus a sack, 2 passes defense, and he also had a pick 6. In fact, Bonito had the first pick 6 of the game. Pat Surtain had 4 tackles and a pass defense. And for the Browns, Jameis Winston, 34 of 58 for 497 yards, with 4 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, and an 88.1 QB rating. Big numbers except for the QB rating. Alright, Jerome Ford was held to 9 carries, 41 yards. Nick Chubb, 9 for 21. And Jameis Winston, 3 for 11. So this is a 508-yard game for Jameis Winston. How about Jerry Jeudy? He went off in this game. He goes for 9 catches, 235 yards, and a touchdown on 13 targets in his return to Denver. Elijah Moore also over 100 receiving. 8 catches for 111 on 14 targets. David Njoku, 9 catches, 52 yards, and 2 touchdowns on 17 targets. Very, very impressive numbers. Nick Chubb did catch a touchdown in this game as well. Dustin Hopkins, 1 for 2 on field goals as long as 45, and 3 for 3 on extra points. And Corey Bojorquez, 6 punts averaging 52, long punt of 63, 1 touchback, and 3 inside the 20-yard line. Jordan Hicks is the leading tackler for the Browns. He had 12. The next closest tacklers, Grant Delpit and Martin Emerson Jr. each had 6 tackles apiece. Myles Garrett was held to 4 tackles. Devin Bush had 5 tackles. Denzel Ward had 3 tackles, 2 passes defense, and an interception. Total yards 552, a season high in yards for the Cleveland Browns versus 400 for the Denver Broncos. Passing yards, big advantage to Cleveland, 475 to 294. Rush yards favored Denver, 106 to 77. The Browns had 28 first downs, the Broncos 19. Cleveland 9 of 19 on third down and 2 for 2 on fourth down. And Denver 6 of 13 on third down. 5 penalties, 46 yards for the Browns, 3 sacks taken for 22. No lost fumbles, 3 interceptions, and 6 punts. And of course, 2 of those interceptions went for touchdowns. 4 penalties, 57 yards for the Broncos, no sacks taken, no lost fumbles, 2 interceptions, and 5 punts. Time of possession, 32 minutes, 10 seconds for Cleveland, 27 minutes, 50 seconds for Denver. Closing line, Denver -6, over under 41.5. I took the Broncos to win and cover, and that caps a very successful straight up week for me at 13-3. My ATS record I'm still trying to work through. I finished the week 7-9. Alright, so that's the recap. So up next now are my week 14 NFL power rankings. And we are going to start at the bottom and work our way up. There's very little change in this week's power rankings. For instance, my bottom 5 teams remain the same. As the 2-10 New York Giants remain at number 32, they will host the Saints this week. The 2-10 Las Vegas Raiders stay at number 31. They're in Tampa Bay. The 2-10 Jacksonville Jaguars are at number 30, and they play the Tennessee Titans in Nashville. Then you got the New England Patriots at number 29 with a 3-10 record. They are one of the 6 remaining teams that are off this week. Then at number 28, same spot as last week, the Carolina Panthers at 3-9. They play the Eagles in Philly. Down 2 spots to number 27, you've got the 4-8 Chicago Bears, who are in San Francisco. Number 26, no change for the Tennessee Titans at 3-9. They host Jacksonville. Up 2 spots to number 25 are the Dallas Cowboys at 5-7. They play the Cincinnati Bengals next Monday night. The New York Jets hang tight at 24. They're 3-9, and they face the Dolphins this week. The Cleveland Browns are 3-9 and remain at number 23. They play the Steelers once again. The New Orleans Saints, despite losing to the Rams, they stay at number 22 with a 4-8 record. They're in New York this week against the Giants. Down a spot to number 21 are the Atlanta Falcons at 6-6. They play the Vikings. Also down a spot to number 20 are the Cincinnati Bengals at 4-8, pretty much done as far as the AFC playoffs are concerned. They play the Dallas Cowboys on Monday night. The Indianapolis Colts move up 2 spots to number 19. They're 6-7. They are off this week. Down 3 spots to number 18, you've got the Miami Dolphins at 5-7. They play the New York Jets. Also down 3 spots to number 17 are the San Francisco 49ers at 5-7. They host the Chicago Bears. The Los Angeles Rams at 6-6 move up 2 spots to number 16. They'll host the Buffalo Bills this week. Up 2 spots to number 15 are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, also at 6-6. They'll host the Raiders. Down a spot to number 14, you've got the Arizona Cardinals at 6-6, and they will host the Seahawks. Up 3 spots to number 13 are the Houston Texans at 8-5. They are off this week. Despite winning, the Seattle Seahawks fell a couple spots to number 12 at 7-5, and they'll play Arizona in a rather big game in the NFC West. Up 1 spot to number 11 are the Los Angeles Chargers at 8-4. They play the Chiefs at Arrowhead on Sunday night. The Washington Commanders moved back into the top 10. They're up 1 spot to number 10 with a record of 8-5. The Baltimore Ravens are down 2 spots at number 9. They're also 8-5. Ditto for the Denver Broncos, up 1 spot to number 8 at 8-5. All 3 teams are off this week. The Minnesota Vikings move up 1 spot to number 7 at 10-2. They host the Atlanta Falcons in the Kirk Cousins return game. The Pittsburgh Steelers stay at number 6 at 9-3. They host the Cleveland Browns, and it's a revenge game for them. They lost in a snowstorm in Cleveland a couple weeks back. My top 5 is the same, but it's just different orders, at least between teams 3, 4, and 5. The Kansas City Chiefs are down to number 5 with an 11-1 record. They'll host the Chargers on Sunday night. The Green Bay Packers move into Kansas City's spot at number 4 at 9-3. They are in Detroit on Thursday night in what I'm already calling my game of the week. The Philadelphia Eagles remain at number 3 at 10-2, and they'll host the Carolina Panthers and a much improved Bryce Young. The Buffalo Bills hold tight at number 2, 10-2 record. They visit the Rams in LA. And the Detroit Lions, still number 1 in my power rankings at 11-1. They will host the Green Bay Packers on Thursday night. Alright, one more thing to talk about here, and that's the latest NFL playoff races after week 13 of the season. So, okay, here we go. We'll start as always with the AFC. The Chiefs, Bills, Steelers, and Texans would be your 4 division leaders as of right now. Kansas City has already clinched a playoff spot at 11-1. 4-0 versus the West, 6-1 in the AFC, 452 strength of schedule, 418 strength of victory. The Buffalo Bills in the 2 spot has already locked up the AFC East title at 10-2. 3-0 versus the East, 7-2 in the AFC. 469 strength of schedule, 438 strength of victory. The Pittsburgh Steelers, with a little cushion at the top of the AFC North at 9-3, sitting in the number 3 spot. 2-1 versus the North, 6-2 in the AFC. 426 strength of schedule, 441 strength of victory. The Houston Texans, leaders of the AFC South, are still in the 4th spot at 8-5. 4-1 versus the South, 6-2 in the AFC. 465 strength of schedule, 384 strength of victory. It's the same 3 teams in the wild card spots as last week: the Chargers, Ravens, and Broncos. The Chargers are in the number 5 spot with a record of 8-4. 2-1 versus the West, 5-3 in the AFC. 459 strength of schedule, 340 strength of victory. Both Baltimore and Denver are 8-5. The Ravens are 2-2 versus the North and 5-4 in the AFC. 557 strength of schedule, 541 strength of victory. The Broncos, also 5-5, are 2-2 versus the West and 4-4 in the AFC. 459 strength of schedule, 302 strength of victory. Baltimore wins the tiebreaker over Denver based on head-to-head win percentage, keeping the Ravens in the 6th spot and the Broncos in the 7th spot. Outside of the playoffs, you've got the Indianapolis Colts sitting at number 8 at 6-7. 1-3 versus the South, 5-4 in the AFC. 535 strength of schedule, 370 strength of victory. In 9th place, you've got the Miami Dolphins at 5-7. 2-2 versus the East, 4-4 in the AFC. 456 strength of schedule, 258 strength of victory. Down in 10th place, you've got the Cincinnati Bengals at 4-8. 1-3 in the North, 2-6 in the AFC. 507 strength of schedule, and only a 208 strength of victory. Then you got a 3-way tie for 11th place with the Browns, Jets, and Titans. Cleveland is 3-9 overall, 2-1 in the North, 3-4 in the AFC, 476 strength of schedule, 514 strength of victory. New York is 3-9 overall, 1-2 versus the East, 3-5 in the AFC, 523 strength of schedule, 368 strength of victory. And Tennessee, also 3-9, is 1-1 versus the South, 3-4 versus the AFC. 574 strength of schedule, 421 strength of victory. Cleveland wins the tiebreaker over Tennessee based on strength of victory. And they also own the tiebreaker over the Jets based on best win percentage in conference games. Meanwhile, New York wins the tiebreaker over Tennessee based on head-to-head win percentage. Earlier this season, the Jets beat the Titans. And you already have 3 teams in the AFC officially eliminated from the playoffs, including the 14th ranked New England Patriots at 3-10. 1-3 versus the East, 2-7 in the AFC, 386 strength of schedule, 306 strength of victory. The Jacksonville Jaguars sitting 15th with a record of 2-10. 1-2 versus the South, 2-5 in the AFC, 588 strength of schedule, 346 strength of victory. And the 16th ranked Las Vegas Raiders also at 2-10. 0-5 versus the West, 2-8 in the AFC. 571 strength of schedule, 440 strength of victory. Jacksonville owns the tiebreaker over Las Vegas based on best win percentage in conference games. On the NFC side of the board, the Lions, Eagles, Seahawks, and Falcons are your division leaders. Detroit is at 11-1 and sits in the number 1 spot. 3-0 versus the North, 7-1 in the NFC. Strength of schedule and strength of victory for the Lions are both 493. Then it's the Philadelphia Eagles in the 2 spot with a record of 10-2. 3-0 versus the East, 6-2 in the NFC. 432 strength of schedule, 418 strength of victory. The Seattle Seahawks, leaders of the West, sit in the 3 spot at 7-5. 2-2 versus the West, 3-4 in the NFC. 479 strength of schedule, 419 strength of victory. And the NFC South leading Atlanta Falcons are at 6-6 and in the number 4 seed. 4-1 versus the South, 6-2 in the NFC. 559 strength of schedule, 472 strength of victory. Atlanta owns the tiebreaker over Tampa Bay based on head-to-head win percentage. The Falcons beat the Bucks twice. Alright, the Vikings, Packers, and Commanders would have your 3 wild cards in the NFC. Minnesota sitting pretty in the number 5 spot at 10-2. 2-1 versus the North, 5-2 in the NFC. 445 strength of schedule, 393 strength of victory. Then you've got the Green Bay Packers in the 6th spot at 9-3. 1-2 in the North, 4-3 in the NFC. 521 strength of schedule, 409 strength of victory. And Washington is in that 7th and final spot at 8-5. 2-2 versus the East, 5-3 in the NFC. 414 strength of schedule, 281 strength of victory. On the outside looking in, you have a 3-way tie with the Buccaneers, Cardinals, and Rams. Tampa Bay is 6-6, 2-2 versus the South, 6-3 in the NFC. 558 strength of schedule, 521 strength of victory. Arizona at 6-6 is 2-1 versus the West, 3-5 in the NFC. 593 strength of schedule, 431 strength of victory. And LA is also 6-6, 2-1 versus the West, and 4-5 in the NFC. 524 strength of schedule, 425 strength of victory. Tampa Bay wins the tiebreaker over Arizona based on best win percentage in conference games. The divisional tiebreaker was initially used to eliminate the Rams. Arizona has the tiebreaker over LA based on head-to-head win percentage, and they do have one more matchup to come later this season. So that puts the Buccaneers at number 8, the Cardinals at 9, and the Rams at 10. 2-way tie with the 49ers and Cowboys. San Francisco is 5-7, 1-3 in the West, 3-5 in the NFC. 572 strength of schedule, 393 strength of victory. And Dallas, also 5-7, is 3-1 versus the East, 3-5 in the NFC. 517 strength of schedule, 393 strength of victory. San Francisco wins the tiebreaker over Dallas based on head-to-head win percentage. So that means the Niners are number 11 and the Cowboys are number 12. Right below them, you have another tie with the Saints and Bears. New Orleans is 4-8, 2-3 in the South, 3-5 in the NFC. 517 strength of schedule, 354 strength of victory. And Chicago, also 4-8, is 0-3 versus the North and 2-5 in the NFC. 507 strength of schedule, 292 strength of victory. New Orleans owns the tiebreaker over Chicago based on best win percentage in conference games. That's 3-5 versus 2-5. And at the bottom, at number 5, that puts New Orleans at 13 and Chicago 14. The Carolina Panthers are number 15 with a record of 3-9. 1-3 in the South, 2-5 in the NFC. 459 strength of schedule, 222 strength of victory. And number 16, already eliminated from the playoffs, are the New York Giants. 2-10 overall. 0-5 in the East, 1-8 in the NFC. 534 strength of schedule, 417 strength of victory. And there it is, folks. The Week 13 edition of the week that was, as we looked at a busy 16-game schedule across the National Football League, which included 3 Thanksgiving Day games and a Black Friday game. We also looked at the latest rankings from the Associated Press and AFCA coaches polls from college football. Now, the latest college football playoff rankings will be released tonight. So just tune in to ESPN at 7 p.m. Eastern, and they will have them on that 1-hour show. So make sure you tune in to ESPN again tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern. We also have my Week 14 power rankings, which again, there was very little movement. And we just finished looking at the latest playoff picture in the NFL entering week number 14. Okay, we will be back on Thursday with my Week 14 NFL picks, both straight up and against the spread. We'll also look at the Thursday Night Football injury report ahead of the Packers and Lions. Plus the latest college football playoff rankings. We will do those on Thursday as well. So again, make sure you join me for all of that. In the meantime, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell and get notified every time I go live. Big Al signing off. Thanks for watching and enjoy the pigskin. Peace out.